Hello and welcome back to the Fruit of Grisaia. Last time we had the fortunate event of meeting Tuna Fishman for the first time. And may he save the world and all of our souls within it with his fishy goodness. Now, let's continue. Yes, hello. I see. Today? I expect it'll be the usual routine. He'll just show up when he feels like it, talk down to everyone for a while, then leave when he gets bored. It has nothing to do with me. Goodbye. Sunday afternoon is a lazy time full of freedom, but for some reason it also seems to inspire deep melancholy in many people. I guess feeling a little down about the approach of Monday is understandable, but why waste free time you have left by sinking into the sentimental ennui? It's a very Japanese thing. Because of my occupation, I've met a lot of friends overseas where they tend to enjoy their days off without any of the gloom. To quote, "Why think about that crap when there's partying to do? Bah ha ha!" Probably as a result of spending so much time with those guys, I'm not the type who gets depressed or wistful on my days off. But among my classmates at the school, there seem to be a few who suffer from the typical Japanese late weekend blues. I can understand in theory, but it's honestly pretty hard to empathize. Finally completed the set! Makina practically skips down the road, playing with a strange keychain. At a glance, that looked like a pretty plain little figurine. Is that thing really as rare as all that? It's number 14 in the Tuna Fishman keychain series, Harbor Worker A. Did you notice the big kid bag he's carrying on his shoulder? Super realistic, truly a first-rate product. Tuna Fishman again? I've got to keep my eye on that one. I've been training my body as I usually do on the weekends, but Makina persistently hung around, pestering me to take her to the shopping district by the station. So here we are. Lately the girl's been furtively buying toys like this whenever she goes out with me. Probably because Amani gets mad when she wastes too much money on stupid crap. Don't mention it to Amani. She'll get cranky at me for encouraging your bad habits. Let her say what she wants. There's no cure for a woman crazed by jealousy, you know. Throw a line from some daytime soap opera at me, will you? Amani really needs to stop watching that crap. No wonder she thinks like a 50-year-old. I'm quoting you, Oni-chan. What? Me? Having assumed the bad influence of the dirty old lady, Makina was responsible for that line. I'm flustered to find that the finger is pointed at me instead. Makina narrows her eyes to slits and turns to me with a smirk. Thought you could blame the little old lady's coarse speech on someone else, huh? Sure shot yourself in the foot with that one. Ugh. Maybe you should be a little more careful about how you talk about the impressionable youth, Yuni-chan. Apparently quite pleased about having cut me down to size, Makina cheerfully jogs on ahead of me. Amani and the others did say that my behavior has been influencing Makina, but hearing it outright from the girl herself is a bit of a shock. Seems I really do need to watch my step. I don't get it. In the workplace, I was considered something of a moral exemplar. Huh? Oni-chan? What's that? Makina suddenly stops a few steps ahead and points down the street. 100 meters ahead or so, there's something unusual enough to halt even Makina's momentum. In front of Mishima Cape Station, a cordon of jet black luxury cars have blocked off the road where the local buses usually stop. 10 odd men wearing suits mill about the area, talking into cell phones, restlessly checking their watches or discussing something in small groups. For Yakuza, they are too white-collar. They don't have the intimidating, aggressive body language characteristics of gangsters. That said, this bunch aren't exactly inviting either. Most people would probably just give them just as wide a berth. What the heck is that? Don't know, but whoever they are not anyone we want to get involved with. How can you tell? If they were friendly, respectable guys, they wouldn't block the road in such a nakedly intimidating way.
You're right, they are kind of scary.
I haven't often seen Makina admit to being frightened like this. The girl's brave enough to grab snakes and centipedes with her bare hand, but something about that group seems to be bothering her quite strongly. She is obviously very uncomfortable. No reason to hang around here. Alright, I think it's time we head back. Instead of those guys, maybe you should be worrying about the homework you haven't even started.
The whole point of this trip was to forget about all that, you know? You're pitiless, Oni-chan.
Yeah, don't just stand there. Let's get moving. As Makina holds her head in her hands and moans, I poke her in the back, urging her down the street toward the dorm. As she finally starts to walk, I shoot a quick glance back toward the station area. The group of men in business suits have come to attention, facing the ticket gate in apparent anticipation. Just now, a special express train seems to be pulling in. The station employees are running around making preparations of some sort. Some sort of big shot arriving.
Oni-chan, you still looking at the station?
Makina looks up at me with a distinctly uneasy expression. It's nothing. Don't worry. I ruffle Makina's head gently and do my best to reassure him. We walk back to the school, still a little tense from our encounter with the mysterious group.
Welcome back.
When I enter the dorm with Makina, Sachi turns to greet us with her usual smile. It may be the weekend, but apparently she's decided to spend it scrubbing the hallways clean. As always, I made Seal for her duties knows no bounds. Yo.
We have returned!
Yes, I'm glad to see the two of you made it home safe. I've already drawn a hot bath if you'd care to take advantage of it. Or perhaps you'd prefer to take advantage of me? It might be slightly early in the day for a nighttime service, but... All of a sudden, I seem to have developed a ferocious headache. I press a hand to my forehead and close my eyes, but can't suppress a bitter grimace. Makina is one thing, but Sachi too? Where did we go so wrong?
Where did we go so wrong? A very good question, Oni-chan's face.
Don't go reading my inner monologue. What did you do to Sachi? This is your fault, I assume.
Whatever. Come on, why don't you take her up on it? I've made her into a super convenient slutty maid. Might as well take her up for a test drive.
Listen to me when I'm talking to you. Also, don't turn people into slutty maids.
Maki-chan informed me that only those who offer service in body and soul are truly worthy of the name maid. It was quite the startling revelation. I realized that my shallow efforts so far amount to nothing more than a superficial imitation of a true maid.
That's complete nonsense. Stop dancing on Makina's strings.
From now on, I shall devote myself utterly to everyone's benefit. If it is requested of me, if it is your desire, I won't hesitate to service you, Kasami-san. From now on, consider me available at any... Wah!
I interrupt Sachi's outrageous proposal, grabbing her firmly by the scruff of the neck and lifting her off the ground.
Wah! Oni-chan, what the heck are you doing?
With the other hand, I seize the miscreant who's been putting troublesome ideas in her head. My prey dangling from both hands, I bellow loudly enough for the entire dorm to hear. Get out here, Amane! Amane! What the heck? I was in the middle of preparing dinner. Amane appears in no time at all. Still gripping a potato in one hand, she favors me with a look of undisguised annoyance. I am a little concerned about something here. These girls are getting worse by the day. Might that possibly be my fault?
What?
Yes, that's your fault. Completely. I see. I had a sense such a crisis might be appearing after Makina's words earlier, but it's still something of a blow to the face my fears made reality. Since you arrived, Makina's such a personality have taken a serious turn for the worse. Honestly, the mouths on these girls lately.
Well, my mouth might be getting worse, but my other holes are getting in better shape, if you know what I mean. Owie, that hurts. This domestic violence, you know.
So, anyway, this right here, this is pretty clearly your fault. Yep, she obviously picked up that nonsense just now from a man, and I guess that means me. Sorry, I've seen the error of my ways.
I'm about to ready to give up on the lot of you. Amane answers in exasperated Kansai dialect. She seems to have concluded that my repentance isn't going to produce any real results, and I guess she's probably right. But I'm now firmly convinced that my behavior has been a bad influence on my two younger classmates. I'll try to tone down the guy talk and stick to nice harmless chats about pasta, or whatever. Huh? What are you guys all doing here? Did something happen?
Hey, Amane, we have one here that doesn't seem to be influenced by me in the least. Can I use her as mitigating evidence?
If you really think she can help your case, go right ahead and explain how.
Sorry, impossible. I throw myself on the mercy of the court.
What the heck? I don't really get it, but I think someone's calling me stupid again. That's it, right? I'm not stupid! Yes, Michiru-sama, you're fine. Putting aside the matter of your stupidity, there's nothing to worry about. Don't put it aside! Also, don't tell me I'm fine just to shut me up. In this case, an external influence or two could be pretty much the only good thing. Could only be a good thing. That said, the thought of Michiru remade in the image of Machina sends a cold shiver down my spine. We've got nothing but eccentricities in this dorm as it stands. I'd really like to avoid adding that sort of hybrid super pest to the mix. So anyway, for some reason there were lots of scary little cars around the station today. Clinging to Amane, Machina reports the earlier events. Scary looking? What? Super flashy lowrider cars with some weird statue propped up in the passenger seat?
Nah, they weren't freaky scary like something I could see you driving.
Yuuji, just what kind of a person do you think I am anyway? Anyway, they were scary but not freaky scary like something I could see you driving, Amane. This is also your fault, Yuuji.
Sorry, I've seen the error of my ways.
So, how were the cars scary then? They were super shiny and painted black, even the windows. Huh? If the windows are painted black, how can you see the road? They are made of smoked glass, Michiru-sama. Huh? What's that? They cooked the glass over a fire?
Michiru, stop talking for a while.
Why? She said smoked, so it makes sense. Why is it wrong? Haven't you ever eaten smoked salmon or smoked cheese or whatever? I think I'm just going to change the subject now. Basically, they were luxury cars of some sort. Lexus or Toyota Century or something. Yeah, that's right. Oh wait, today's I get it now. You were shut up in the dorm the last few times, so I guess this would be your first time seeing the Daimyo's procession. Daimyo's procession? What the heck?
Amane, I'm a bit worried you might be the sort to stealthily hit the bottle in the kitchen when the kids' bags are turned, but things have progressed to the point of visual hallucination.
Okay, can you not decide I'm an alcoholic in 5 seconds flat? It's a metaphor for that convoy of black cars, of course. Can you really not figure out that for yourselves? We're buffeted with roars of Kansai-inflicted rays. However, I've already tuned Amane out. I'm currently wondering about the one conspicuous absence from our group.
By the way, I haven't seen Sakaki today. She out again?
Yuuji, haven't you heard about any of this stuff?
I don't know what stuff you're referring to. What does Sakaki's absence have to do with your alcoholism?
Drop the alcoholism bit. Well, you see, today, at my side, Sachi hesitantly begins to speak, but quickly falters to a stop.
What? Should I not have asked?
It's not like it's a taboo topic or anything, but for once, even Michiru has something of a restrained expression on her face. Sakaki-san isn't around because of the parent-teacher conference.
Her parents are visiting the school, even though it's a Sunday?
Precisely because it's a Sunday.
What?
The Daimyo's procession tends to be a spur-of-the-minute thing.
Huh?
By train this time? I see, so you'll be coming from the station. Certainly, yes, I understand. Right on schedule then. Yes, Yumiko-san is in the dormitory. She won't be at so she won't be at the school building. Please excuse me, I seem to have a visitor. Yes, of course, in 30 minutes then. Goodbye. Come in.
Here I was thinking the job of principal consisted solely of signing off on paperwork. It seems I was mistaken. I owe you an apology.
The fact that you increased your opinion of my job over a single phone call feels more insulting than anything else.
Anyway, there's something I wanted to ask you about.
Very well, but would you please have the good manners to close the door first?
Whoops, sorry about that.
After swinging the overly ornate door shut, I wander over to the espresso machine and pour out 2 cups of coffee. I set the cups down on the table, just the sort of dignified slab of wood you'd expect a raging giant monkey to fling dramatically through some window, then take my seat on a sofa. You're completely at home, aren't you? The principal grumbles a bit at my confident movements, but nonetheless sits down across from me without being asked. Alright, what did you want to discuss with me?
Amanda told me there's a parent-teacher conference taking place today.
Parent-teacher conference? Ah, right, I see.
I think you're aware, but it's the weekend. There are no classes for anyone to sit in on, and there shouldn't be any teachers here to have a conference with. Weird enough, but on top of it all, you're at the school for some reason.
Even though it's a day off? Right.
Also, there was a clump of expensive jet black cars sticking out like a sore thumb around the station this afternoon, and finally...
Finally?
I haven't seen Sakaki all day. I don't know much about anything about her background, but that aloof attitude makes me think her family environment is probably unusual. Judging from the way the others reacted, all of this seems to be connected. Am I on the right track?
Susan and the others didn't explain?
It's a private matter after all. I didn't feel comfortable dragging it out of them, so I came over to get the story from a more official source.
I see. The principal lets out a single sigh and stands up from the sofa. Opening a desk drawer, she takes out a brochure, then returns and drops it on the desk in front of me. It's the familiar Mihama Academy admissions pamphlet. I showed this to you on the day you entered the school, yes?
Yep, although I just flipped through it, really.
This sort of informational brochure is generally packed with thinly disguised advertising or obtuse legal disclaimers. Either way, it tends to involve a lot of flowery, empty phrases, not genuine facts and figures. I'm not twisted enough to find pleasure in picking out all the lies and half-truth I can find in this sort of thing. This pamphlet in particular was written about this truly bizarre academy of ours. I expect there's more lies than half-truths, and most pretty blatant ones at that. That's so, then you probably skipped over this part, I suppose. Principal Tachibana flips the pamphlet open to the first page. Just as I expected, it's filled with pseudo-poetical sentences describing the school and its mission in highly exaggerated terms.
Is there something in...
The principal's pointing to the opposite page. On the upper half of the brochure, there's the words Principal Tachibana Chizuru, accompanied by a weirdly formal photo portrait. And then we have the Chairman of the Board of Trustees, accompanied by a different name. Sakaki Michiaki.
So this would be...
The principal nods deeply. That's correct. Mr. Sakaki Michiaki. Naturally, their family names are not the product of some freak coincidence.
He's Sakaki-san's
father. He's coming to inspect the school today. Any minute now, I guess. How much do you know about Mr. Sakaki Michiaki?
As much as the next guy, no more. Haven't had any reason to look too deeply into him.
Sakaki Michiaki is a name you'll find extremely frequently in the papers, magazines and television news. The East Beach Express Groups, owners of a rail network with a prominent line running along the east coast of the Kanto region. As this powerful corporate body's president, it's only natural that he's referred in the media on a regular basis. On the surface, he's the head of one of the leading Japanese business conglomerates and an extravagant multimillionaire. And behind the scenes, he's a heartless tyrant. ruthlessly wielding brute force to perpetuate the aggressive expansion of his company's rail network. He doesn't hesitate to shatter the lives of those who stand in his way. In particular, there's a lot of talk about his borderline fraudulent tactics in acquiring land, apparently a legacy of the previous president. Under his leadership, the group has earned a friendly nickname, Eager Bandit Express. I'm really not particularly interested in that sort of gossip. The fact that I know his name anyway is a decent indication of just how much of an infamous celebrity this man is.
Well, that's about the extent of my knowledge. I hope this is the part where you tell me I've gotten the wrong idea about the guy.
Unlike the media's fabricated image, he's actually a kind, friendly person, or something. Very common in fiction, but unfortunately the reality isn't quite as pretty. The principal takes a brief sip of her coffee. He's pretty much exactly the sort of person the rumors would have you believe, but every once in a while he does visit his daughter's school on a whim. On paper, I suppose he's coming to spend some time with her, but
that's not the case.
They haven't met face to face once since she came here, and he's visited 3 times already. Sakaki-san actively refuses to see him.
There a reason for that?
To explain that, I'd have to get into the circumstances surrounding the founding of this school, which I may have mentioned before. In the first place... Whoops, they'll be here soon. After stopping the alarm, the principal glances back at me. We can continue this discussion later, if you'd like.
No, I don't think that's a good idea.
The man comes all the way out here to visit his daughter's school, then leaves without even meeting her? From that behavior, it's pretty clear the story of Mihama Academy's founding is directly connected to Sakaki's past and family circumstances, even if the principal doesn't spell it out for me. I don't think it would be right to hear anything more than this from a third party.
I'm sure it involves those complex reasons she has for being here that you were hesitant to talk about last time. That would mean you'd have to tell me things my classmate wants to keep to herself, and if you left the sensitive parts out, I'd end up with half an unpleasant story, which is just as bad.
I see. You are unexpectedly considerate toward your classmates.
No, I'm just looking to avoid making my life more complicated than it needs to be.
I stand up from the couch and begin to move towards the door. I think Sakaki-san will most likely be on the roof of the dormitory today. But before I can make my exit, the principal's words bring me to a halt. As I said before, she is the one who refuses to meet with her father. But she doesn't lock herself up in her room or disappear into the town for his visits. When her father is here, she is always up on the roof of the dorm, looking down to watch his perfunctory inspection of the school.
And you're telling me this why?
No one else is going to be there for her right now. You know how she is. The other kids have a hard time getting close to her at the best of times, but when her father's visiting, she's prickly as a porcupine. But I hear you've been interacting with her lately.
I don't know where you got that information, but it must have been a pretty shaky source. I'm not any closer to Sakaki than any of the others are. If anything, it's the opposite.
Is that so? Somehow I got the idea that you might show Sakaki-san a little kindness when she needs it.
Act on the basis of wishful thinking and you'll never get anything done. More importantly, don't you have a VIP to roll out the red carpet for? I'll be leaving now.
He is not treating the principal very well, is he? I sort of sensed this in our previous conversation as well, but the principal seems to be expecting some sort of convenient chemical reaction between me and the other students. Yes, I'm putting in effort towards creating something like a student life for myself, which means trying to maintain a basic standard of communication with my classmates. But if that were to cross the line, if I were to push my way into their private lives, there's no way it would end well for anyone involved. After all, we're talking about people driven into something very close to an isolation facility. In the worst case scenario, prying could quite literally be a lethal mistake. If I ever get involved in their problems, it's only going to be when they reach out to me on their own initiative. Since Sakaki hasn't shown any intention to do so, I'm not going to make the first move, and I'm convinced that's the correct policy.
Damn it, that principal never gives me anything but trouble.
Think he'll be getting here any minute now. Well, I've completed a quick cleaning of the area around the dormitory. You always keep it very nice, Sachin. They wouldn't have complained either way. Should we say hello or something? I don't think that's a great idea. I don't want to badmouth someone else's dad, but to be honest, it probably wouldn't be that pleasant an experience. What? Have you met Yumiko's dad before? My old man's a chef, you know. He's got a lot of connections, so yeah, I ended up introducing myself to Sakaki's dad before I transferred over here. And it wasn't a particularly pleasant experience? Well, I know this is kind of cliché, but the man's eyes were ice cold. Everything coming out of his mouth was polite though, so polite it was kind of creepy. Either way, this whole thing seems kind of cruel. I know he has his company or whatever, but he only ever bothers to come on weekends, and then he's just gone just like that. Well, yeah, since it's all for show. Smells like the sort of grown-up I ain't too fond of. Yeah, well, it's not like he's coming to see us, and it'll only last an hour or so. Let's just deal with it, okay? By the way, where's Yuuji? He said he was going to see the principal, but that was a while ago, and he hasn't come back. And now that you mention it, I wonder where he's gotten off to. Well, we definitely had a car. Chairman, it's been a while. A pleasure to see you again.
Yeah, it's been what, 2-3 months since our meeting in Tokyo?
Might I ask what brings you here today?
Do I need a specific reason to visit the school I built?
No, that's not what I meant to imply.
I'm inspecting the region and I had the opportunity to stop by. I feel the need to visit this place personally when I can. Think of it as an attempt to show my contrition from pushing my problem onto you.
I see.
I don't have much time. Let's follow the same route as always.
I had tentatively decided a course of inspection, if you'd care to.
The same route as always will be fine. I don't need to see anything else, which means I'm not going to waste my time doing so.
Yes.
Let's get going then.
To the point, really. It's kind of like getting a high-maintenance power plant built in your backyard all of a sudden, I think. This academy appears that way to the people of the city. It's not unusual. It's not usually going to cause any problems, but there's always that fear of the worst-case scenario. The locals are naturally going to feel pretty worried about it. Assuming we are a meltdown just waiting to happen is pretty rude if you ask me. But we're all here for a reason, you know, and they know that. Well... Anyway, that's why they do these phony inspections. The big boss comes down and wanders around for a while just to reassure the public that everything's fine. No impending meltdown here. Just like that one minister who ate the radishes with the E. coli and stuff. More or less. Honestly, if they don't do something like this pretty regularly, there's no telling when someone might start agitating to get the school closed. Are we a nuisance? Nope, absolutely not. But we do have to be careful to stay on our best behavior in town and keep ourselves out of everyone's hair when the boss comes around. Yeah. That said, this is definitely a lot harder on Sakaki-san than it is on any of us. I'm sure that it is.
Speaking of the sun.
Done with the school building already, it seems. As soon as I opened the door to the rooftop, I met with a piercing glare. Much like that last time we met here, Sakaki is standing straight as an arrow near the edge of the roof. Her hair is dancing in the sea breeze. It must be troublesome with that long hair, But unlike last time, there's undisguised hostility in her eyes.
Yo.
Holding eye contact, I answer her sharp gaze with a light greeting. She's clearly on her guard, so I stop my approach with a good distance still separating us. The same as last time?
What are you talking about?
The reason you're here. I'd like to know if this is a coincidence or not.
The reason I'm here, of course, is that I was slightly worried about a certain woman I knew to be brooding all by herself. Thanks to that meddlesome principal's unsolicited tip, I knew Sakaki's location, and having been handed that information, the idea of leaving her up here alone started to feel strangely unpleasant. Of course, if I told Sakaki the plain truth in this situation, there's no doubt she'd aggressively reject my concern. A coincidence, of course. I did hear today was a slightly special day, though. So instead, I offer up a vague mixture of lies and truth. The ball's in Sakaki's court now. In that case, please leave me alone. I don't feel like talking. Don't worry, I didn't start the conversation last time either, remember? True enough. Sakaki breaks a sidelong glare in my direction, her gaze returning to the ground below. Since the dome is only a 3-story building, the people below are clearly visible from a vantage point on the rooftop. Just now, the principal is leading a man in an expensive-looking dark grey suit and what seems to be his entourage in our direction. Sakaki purses her lips tightly. As the approaching figures draw closer, she pulls herself back from the edge just far enough that she can't be seen from the ground. Her placement clearly conveys her desire to observe and her absolute rejection of being observed in return. Ha 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 ha! There's a voice from below. I casually glance toward the sound. The man in an expensive suit has a fake smile plastered across his face. His laughter is utterly hollow to the point that it's actually physically unpleasant to hear. It's the forced laugh of a person who hasn't known real amusement in a very long time. Sakaki flinches at the sound. She opens her mouth ever so slightly, takes a few small breaths, then closes it again. Her sharp gaze is clearly focused on the man in the expensive suit. She watches the man fixedly as he struts along confidently next to the principal. It's the expression of someone seizing up an old and bitter enemy, but there's also something like sadness there. We haven't been formally introduced or anything, but it seems safe to say the man in the suit is her father, Sakaki Michiaki. Compared to the man in the pamphlet, he seems slightly scrawnier, but I'm willing to bet that's just a result of some subtle photographic retouching by his PR people. Yumiko simply stares down at him in silence. Those aren't, or shouldn't be, the eyes of someone looking at their father. That said, they're not full of murderous rage either. Her eyes are just sad and empty. Still going. Alright, now we've more or less seen everything. At the principal's words, the group stops just a little distance from the dormitory. Yes, I think we're done here, but before I'm on my way... He turns to his side, fixing the principal with a cold-eyed stare. I assume the girl is still refusing to see me. Yes, I'm afraid so. Quite firmly. With a single irritated grunt, the chairman turns on his heel and begins to walk off. He strides toward the front gate with his party, exuding overbearing haughtiness to the end. He doesn't look back. Sakaki stares unblinking as his quietly retreating figure. There's no particular emotion on her face now, she simply watches until the end. When his distant figure reaches the school building and finally passes completely from view, Sakaki drops both hands to the iron rail, leans forward and heaves a heavy sigh. She stays that way for a long time, looking straight down at the concrete beneath her feet. The sea breeze picks up after a long interruption. Salty air rushes past us from behind. Sakaki's long hair and school uniform flap noisily in the wind. When the gust dies down, there's a moment of perfect silence. You really don't plan to ask me anything, do you? Sakaki mutters a few words to the concrete beneath her feet. There's a hint of weakness in her voice. That's right. I offer a concise reply. I'm not tactless enough to poke my nose into other people's business out of mere curiosity. I think we've been over this. I'm not going to ask you anything, but if you have something you want to talk about, I'm willing to listen. I don't know what Sakaki really wants from me right now, but I think her words pretty clearly indicate that she was hoping I'd ask her something. Of course, that doesn't mean I now have free rein to barrage her with questions. That isn't why I'm here in the first place.
Why won't you see your father? Is there a reason you're in this school? What exactly do you think about Sakaki Michiaki? There are plenty of things I'm interested in knowing, but it's not like dragging the answers out of her is going to change anything. If explaining things would offer Sakaki some relief as her classmate, I'm willing to ask those questions. But as long as I don't know that for sure, throwing my curiosity at her would exceed good-natured meddling and land solidly in the territory of outright prying. I believe I finally understand how you think.
I'm sorry if you find my reasoning unpleasant. This is just my personality.
I wouldn't say unpleasant. At the very least, you seem to be different from the people I've had around me up until now. From Sakaki's expression, I can understand she doesn't mean that in a negative way. Her usual harsh, prickly aura of rejection seems to have softened somewhat. If I ever feel the need to talk, would you listen?
Like I just said, talk all you want. I'm not going to stop you.
I see. I'll make a note. Sakaki pushes herself away from the railing and walks across to the door. I really love when Sakaki is smiling. There's just something about her face that's really, really adorable. Alright then, goodbye.
Yeah.
Sakaki's slender hand throws the door open with surprising firmness. As soon as she's inside, it closes solidly behind her. The wind picks up again, gusting strongly across the rooftop. A few stray grains of sand from the nearby beach blow into my face.
Guess I'll head back myself.
I'm not going to pretend to understand Sakaki right now, but if my arrival at this school, this dorm, my entrance into her life can end up working to her advantage somehow, I think I'd like to make that happen. Simple as that. Right now, the fact that I'm living this carefree, peaceful life fills me with guilt. It's a burden I carry with me every waking moment. If I can lighten that load of self-condemnation slightly by doing some half-assed social-consular volunteer work, then there's something in it for me as well. Of course, the way I'm thinking about this in such a calculating mercenary way adds a whole new layer of guilt on top of it all.
On second thought, I don't know if I should be counseling anyone.
Slowly descending the stairs, I mutter quietly to myself. Sinking deeper into a Sunday afternoon melancholy that has nothing to do with the approaching work week, I continue my little soliloquy for some time. That was a long episode, so we'll take whatever the cicadas bring in the next episode. And until then, take care.